And joining me now is the top Democrat on the Armed Service Committee, Representative Adam Smith of Washington. Congressman Smith, thank you for being with us this morning. What do you make of the latest developments out of the Department of Defense?
Secretary Hegseth doesn't know how to run the department, which is not surprising. When he was picked, a lot of us questioned his ability, his experience. I mean, the only two agencies he'd ever run before were two nonprofits that he ran right into the ground that are much smaller than the Pentagon. There's a very well-documented history of terrible behavior as a boss, inability to run things well, and that's playing out. I mean, I was reading this morning that Secretary Hegseth is complaining that, this is just disgruntled former employees. Well, let's stop and think about that for a moment. The disgruntled former employees are now like 5 people who he hired 2 months ago. I mean, how did these employees get so disgruntled so fast? I mean, that speaks to the lack of ability at the top. It's chaos, and we've heard the stories about how he is running it into the ground. So he doesn't have the management experience. He doesn't have the experience in the Pentagon, and he appears to not have the temperament. I mean, the fights and the level of, I don't know, almost childish behavior back and forth between his employees within the first 2 months in office just shows he's not qualified. I mean, forget for the moment what his defense policy is or what he's planning on doing on national security. He simply does not appear to have the temperament or the management skills, gosh, I don't know, to run a lemonade stand, much less run the United States Pentagon.
Well, I want to stay with that point because you mentioned the word national security. It's all fine, well, and good to get attracted to or interested in and engage with some of the drama and narrative around some of the back and forth that's going on behind the scenes. But this is serious stuff. Can you talk about the implications of what it is to not have stable leadership for our Department of Defense and what that means for national security?
Well, first of all, it jeopardizes our national security and our secrets because clearly one of his biggest problems is he thinks he can share the most sensitive information at the Pentagon with just about anybody. That gives our adversaries a substantial leg up. Terrorists can access this information. It makes the country less safe, clearly. But also lost in all this discussion, and I've had a lot of conversations about this on the media, is this was all kicked off because we started a war in Yemen. We have been bombing Yemen aggressively for over 40 days now. And we can argue about the wisdom of that, but how's that going? Nothing much has changed. I just came back from 10 days in the region. The campaign goes on. The Red Sea is still closed. What's the plan? I have not heard Pete Hegseth or anyone in the administration lay out to the American people, or for that matter to Congress, here's what we're doing, here's where we're headed. Well, what does that mean? We're spending a lot of money. We jeopardize a wider war. We have the potential conflict with Iran. What's he doing about any of that instead of, going to the Easter egg hunt and complaining about disgruntled former employees? That's not leadership, all right? The whining and complaining about his treatment in the media, the conflicts he has with his own staff. I want to hear about what's he doing in Yemen. What are we doing to help Ukraine? Fend off Vladimir Putin's continuous attacks. What are we doing to try to stop the war in Gaza? What are we doing about procurement programs at the Pentagon so that we can have an adequate deterrence to China? None of that seems to be well thought out at this point. It is lost in the drama, and so it places our national security at risk. It places our troops at risk.
Congressman, you've opened the door to the conversation about Yemen, and so I'm going to ask you flat out and plainly, do you think that we should be escalating our attacks there on the Houthis? And if so, what does that look like? If not, why not?
Well, I don't think we should be escalating those attacks at this time because it has no clear end point. And also, we have not built support in the region. I visited the United Arab Emirates when I was over there and talked about, okay, what comes next? They in Saudi Arabia seem to be in disagreement about who should come next in terms of Houthi leadership. So what's the end game? What's the plan? How does this stop what the Houthis are doing in the Red Sea? At the end of the day, one of the best ways to stop what's happening there is to get to a peace agreement in Gaza between Israel and the Palestinians, something that nobody at the White House seems to be interested in doing right now. And if we don't have some kind of future for the Palestinian people, then our dreams of a security arrangement between the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and Israel die. And that jeopardizes the region. That empowers Iran. So I don't think there is a clear plan. And meanwhile, we're spending a lot of money and risking escalation with Iran and escalation in the region, and again, on a policy that the president and his top people simply have not explained.
Washington Congressman Adam Smith, thank you for getting us started on this Saturday on Velshi. And still ahead, the crown jewel of the Justice Department, the Civil Rights Division.